Brent, ever since you came on the first time, every time I look at my phone and it says volume's too loud, I think about you now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because of the hearing. And I was watching this TV show, and it was like, say, hey, people nowadays they have to watch TV with captions because they can't hear well, and they have to put like studio headphones and iPhones and smartphones have to put like the sound restrictions because people are like slowly going like deaf because of like how things are going. And I think about you and I was like, man, it's like the more because people listen to everything loud, music, TV, and getting to a point people watching everything with caption because they can't, for some reason, they can't understand or can't hear. And I was just thinking that makes me think about you and think about your company. But besides that, man, how's everything been?
Good. I think it's been about what, almost a year, maybe not quite a year since we spoke. We've made a lot of great progress. The company continues to continues to go along on our 20-mile march of getting to FDA approval for our claim device, which I think is going to be monumental. So things have been good. It's just life in the medical device world. Things take time, but once you get there, the barriers to entry for anybody coming behind you are so high. So it's a high risk, high reward kind of deal.
So, what plans do you have when this FDA approval comes through?
So right now we're in the trial, pivotal clinical trial. We've done 10 patients in that trial. We are going to ask for expansion to the FDA. So we're going to submit what we call an expansion request that we can go from the first stage to the second stage. That expansion news hopefully comes here in the next couple of months. It could happen as early in the quarter of the fourth quarter, or maybe towards the end. We just always have a dialogue with the FDA, so it's hard to predict. But once we get to the point where hopefully, let's assume everything goes well. Let's assume the trial yields the results that I believe it will, and we get approval. From there, really, it's going to be a lot of fun because at that point, we are aiming directly at the market leader, which is Cochlear Limited. They're an Australian-based company, and then trying to attract market share from their patients. And I just think that when you look at the hearing implant market, one of the main reasons, or one of the most attractive things about the hearing implant space, even the hearing aid space, but let's just focus on hearing implants, is that it's incredibly underpenetrated. And so our goal will be to educate people and say there's a new option, and that option is fully implanted. It's invisible hearing, and it provides a level of flexibility that you have not yet had with other devices. And I just think from there, we'll just slowly start to attract more patients. I think patient demand will be high. And eventually, our biggest problem will be how fast can we scale?
That's what investors love to hear. I do want to talk about where do you think you like separate yourself from the competition? Where do you feel like you're uncopyable? Because like once this FDA approval happens, once you start going after the leader of the market, what's gonna like really just set yourself apart and create this moat, this stickiness to your business? You're in a space where everybody needs you, but there's
So,
also other competitors.
right. So right now, the major differentiator is that we use the ear to pick up sounds. We have the sensor that sits on our incus bone. So again, just for the listeners who may not be familiar, we have you have your eardrum. Behind your eardrum, there's these three tiny bones, and they connect to your cochlea, and that takes the sound energy to your cochlea. Your cochlea then brings the information to your brain. That's kind of how the hearing organ works. What we do is we pick up the sound vibrations off of off the incus, which is the second of those hearing bones. That is completely unique to anything that's currently on the market. So the fact that we have a sensor that picks up the sound there versus a microphone on the outside of our ear or an implanted microphone behind the ear, we use the ear to pick up sound. And that is completely different. We just trademarked or are in the process of trademarking nature's microphone, because the idea is to use your ear to pick up sound is a differentiator for us, and that is going to set us apart. Now, how easy would it be for somebody to come along after us and replicate that? Incredibly, incredibly hard. What we've done with that sensor is incredibly unique to what's currently on the market. So, and we have 20 years of clinical data because we use that sensor in our first device, the Esteem. So we know it works. We know how to implant it. We know how to manufacture it. So the moat around us, as you talked about, is intellectual property is one thing, regulatory approval is going to be another thing, and then just the fact that we have all this know-how and experience with this device. So we have a lot of things that will allow us to move forward, and I'm really, really happy about where we are.
I feel like the plan that you have is very like sound, but the one question that comes to mind with everything that's coming in the future, where's the sales funnel? Do you already start? Are you working on partnerships to really get your product out there? Because once this happens, it's kind of go mode, and then people will start looking for the implants to be in thousands of people and looking for longevity.
So the implant market in the United States. So we're going to focus first on the United States, and then we'll go to Europe. Sort of that's our geographical plan is to focus on the developed world, because hearing implants are just more common in the developed world. Eventually we'll grow to the rest of the world, but start in the US and then go to Europe. But it's a very limited number of surgeons who do this. So what I've been doing since I took over in 2015 is I go to these conferences, I talk about fully implanted solutions, I tell them sort of when we think we'll be available, and I start to get a list of surgeons and audiologists who want to work with this technology. And so my plan is, when we get FDA approved, my plan is to have about 3-4 dozen sites ready to go that first year. So if we have 3-4 dozen sites ready to go that first year, we can go deep with those sites. So we could think about, let's say you have one site, just sort of for illustration purposes, you have one site in every state or every major metropolitan area, and you start to go deep with those sites. This is very similar to what Intuitive Medical or Surgical did. I think they call themselves just Intuitive now, but it used to be the Da Vinci robot. They started with one center, proved that it worked there, and then they went slowly but surely. And they wanted to set up centers that they could work with and that they knew wanted to develop this program. Versus if you try to go everywhere and be all things to all people, you can spread yourselves thin. You can spend way too much cash on centers that really aren't that interested in working with you. And so what we want to do is we want to focus on the ones we know are good and capable of doing this, but also want to be part of this. And then if we get them to 50 implants a year or 1,000 implants a year, and you multiply that by the number of sites, you start to realize this can be a pretty attractive opportunity, because these are high dollar implants. We're planning on charging somewhere between $30,000 and $35,000 a piece. So you can start to see that when we get FDA approved, if we're able to even just hit a little bit of the market, we can make a lot of money. And so it does make sense for investors to come in now when we're, I believe, undervalued, because by the time we start getting closer to FDA approval and executing on our plan, you're going to see that this is going to become a very attractive investment opportunity, and the stock will not stay where it is today.
Completely understand. I'm assuming that the things that you're talking about is what's going to be tracking on how you're winning. You know what I mean? So for example, an investor wrote a $50 million check to track on how you're winning is basically how many implants you're getting. What about longevity? Like, how long is these implants are able to last in somebody's ear?
Our Acclaim device is built basically to last with the patient for their lifetime. So all cochlear implants are like that. You build them so that with the materials that they should last with the patient's lifetime. We also have the ability to update our device, the design of the Acclaim device, which is, investigational. So I just, feel like I have to always remind people it's not yet commercially available. It's an investigational device, but the design of the device has firmware in it that will allow us to upgrade the device without having to take the device out. So let's say we get a new stimulation strategy or new sound processing strategy that we want to try. There's a chance we can just upgrade the patient's firmware and give them that. So we think we're well positioned to be able to do that. But now this is another differentiator for us, and this is completely unique. Because we use the ear to pick up sound, one of the benefits is we're going to be able to leverage consumer electronics, or the patient is going to be able to leverage consumer electronics as they rapidly evolve. So let's take the AirPod 3 news that came last week. So the AirPod 3 comes out. Now you have real-time language translation, sound canceling that's, they claim, best in class. So because we use the ear to pick up sound, if our patients want to be on a plane and pop it in and use the noise canceling, or they go travel abroad and they want to have real-time language translation, they could potentially put something just in their ear that works with our device. The other companies don't have that option because they have an external sound processor and they don't even use the ear. So we'll be able to move rapidly and sort of act as like a foundation technology that can work symbiotically with some of these rapid advancements. So as artificial intelligence, for example, as that starts to progress and companies like Apple try to have something in your ear that lets you use that, like Siri in your ear, for example, our device is sort of a foundational technology that could work with that because we use the ear to pick up sound. And I think that's something. I keep coming back to the fact that we use the ear to pick up sound because that really is different for us, and it allows a layer of flexibility for our patients that nobody has seen before. And that really is going to be a different thing. And I believe it's going to be something that's going to resonate with patients.
No, that's amazing. If you can, your technology can adapt and you can software update it from far away without taking an implant that costs $30,000 to $50,000 out. That makes a game changer, and you can't see it. But besides that, I want to kind of get more into your leadership style, because as things progress, we're going to have to start relying on your decision once you get the FDA approval. And let me ask this question, and I kind of already know it from the first time.
Yeah.
But what's your personal belief behind this company? I know you said your family used to run it. Am I correct from last time? You know what I mean? So what keeps you going? Because this is a really long process, and you're almost to the part where you're probably going to start seeing real results.
The history of the company. My father and mother were two of the first outside investors in the company when this started 30 years ago. So this is a long time. I was in middle school when they first invested, and my father was the chairman of the board for a while. We became, a larger company. There are many more investors involved in it, many more people involved in it, But in 2015, I took over as CEO when the company was struggling. It really didn't have a future, frankly. And I was responsible, along with our chief engineer at the time, a guy named Paul Masnick, to transition this with, by the way, Glenn Taylor, our largest shareholder and investor. The three of us basically sat down and thought, well, how's the best way we can save this company? Well, let's pivot to a fully implanted cochlear implant. I sort of did everything outside of the engineering. Paul did all of the engineering. And then Mr. Taylor was the one that was writing the checks. And so we set forth on this path because we knew we would be able to change people's lives. And so part of my reason for still being here, there's several. I mean, a very practical reason is I want my family's investment to pay off. I want to be financially secure. I want to be more than financially secure, right? I want to be independently wealthy eventually. And this, I believe, is an opportunity to get there, because right now, if you look at our market cap today of like 35 million, and you look at where we should be, where I believe we will be, let's take FDA approval, assume a couple of years of revenue. I mean, this company's, it's going to have a couple extra zeros after it eventually. And so from that standpoint, from a practical standpoint, I really believe this is a financial opportunity that I cannot have anywhere else. I cannot have this financial windfall, potential financial windfall, if we're successful anywhere else. I just can't. Then from the other side,
I'm behind you on that one. I feel you. I'm 100%. behind you. You believe in a cause. I do want to ask you this one question. As a CEO, as a leader of a company, somebody in this space and somebody who's making your mark in this space, where do you see this space, med tech space, going in like 24 months with AI and everything? Because I feel like you have ability to add AI into what you're doing. You know what I mean?
I do. I think on the so I think when I think about AI, I think about it in two ways. So on the implant side of it, on our side of it, we're an implant company. It's very hard to wrap unless things change at the FDA, which, things are fluid right now, but unless things change at the FDA, it's going to be very hard to implement new technologies like that very quickly in implants, which is but on the external side, so on the hearing aid side, on the consumer electronic side, it is going to move incredibly quickly. And the AirPod 3 is just an example. One of the things you're seeing with hearing aid companies is that they're becoming more consumer electronics. So, like, there's a company here in town, Starkey, and Starkey makes a Genesis AI hearing aid, for example. It's moving more in this direction of like trying to sort of compete with some of these consumer electronics, frankly. You're trying to give more features and benefits, and it's not so much just about the hearing. So, on the hearing aid side, you're going to see it move very quickly towards trying to incorporate a lot of those AI features. And then on the implant side, it's going to be how can we live symbiotically with that so that our patients can use that technology? And Envoy is perfectly positioned for that because we use the ear to pick up sound. So you can pop an AirPod in. You could even wear a hearing aid on top of our cochlear implant. You can't do that with the others, again, because we pick up the sound off the ear. So I see it moving quickly. The other thing I see that I think will be very different in 24, 36, 48 months, you're going to see the adoption in hearing implants increase because you're going to see right now, the penetration rate for cochlear implants is 5%. It's pathetically low. And that is partially because nobody wants to wear those big things on the outside of your head, but it's also because they can't evolve quickly. And so I think you're going to see penetration start to increase for hearing implants. People are talking about brain computer interfaces for, like Elon Musk is coming into the medical device space with a brain computer interface company. Our device is not a brain computer interface company, but there's some similarities there, right? Like you can leverage that to benefit. You can take information. Eventually, maybe we can sense other things besides hearing. Maybe we can use it to communicate with ourselves where, maybe ChatGPT can be incorporated eventually where you can start to ask yourself a question and it can answer it right in your ear. I mean, that's not in our device right now, but I mean, you can start to see where this can get pretty fun, pretty interesting.
100%, because that's kind of exact route I was taking. Because if you have the ability to software update it from wherever you're at, I just feel like those things, once they're in there, those things will be a lot easier. Definitely, if you have open storage, open source, what I mean, you can probably do that from far away and not have to change the technology drastically and have to do operation. But now we're on the operation part. How long is the surgery? Is it a big surgery or is it like a in-house inpatient type surgery?
So the acclaimed cochlear implant takes about 2 hours to implant. It's done under general anesthetic. So it is a major surgery in terms of like, you're under general, you go into the OR, they open an incision and then they implant it. So we have a part in the head and then a part in the chest. The battery pack is in the chest. By the way, another great part of our device is because the battery pack is in the chest, we have a large battery. If you know anything about AI and ChatGPT and all these other things, right, it takes a lot of power. So if we're going to incorporate some of that artificial intelligence eventually into our device, we're going to need the capacity to be able to do that. So I think the battery pack in the chest also allows us to evolve quickly in the future. But it's an outpatient procedure. So you get the procedure, you go home that same day, and it's not usually an issue for the patients. There are surgery complications that are typical with any surgery, but nothing special to our device like
I
that.
agree. It seems like, would that be a major hurdle for you guys trying to get people to do this type of surgery?
When you look at cochlear implants, So let me break it down to you. There's always going to be some people that are not going to want surgery, right? Like there's just going to be some people that avoid getting surgery, and that's fine. It's not for them. I would say a couple of things. First of all, we only need 5-10% of the market, hearing cochlear implant market, to make a lot of money. And that is just, if you break 5-10% of the cochlear implant market, we're talking about 5-10,000 units a year. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of devices, right? So are there 5-10,000 people a year that want to get a fully implanted cochlear implant? My personal belief is absolutely. And so I think we're going to get to a place where we can make plenty of money. Now, when we look at the grand slam home run, are we making this a bigger for other people? We're just going to need to do a better job of educating people on the benefits. There's risks, yes, but there's benefits. And when you look at cochlear implants as a whole, hearing aids at a certain point don't do enough for you. That's just a reality. So as you progress, we started off talking about people losing their hearing. There's more and more people now moving into that profound category. In the United States, there's about 2.8 million people that need a cochlear implant or could get a cochlear implant, but only about 25,000 a year get a cochlear implant. So it begs the question, why? So we need to do a better job of penetrating the market. But even if we don't, there's enough low-hanging fruit here where if we get 5-10,000 implants a year, we're going to be golden. So I kind of look at it when we start to model this out internally. We're talking about, okay, what's our nominal case, and make sure our nominal case is still a very good case. Then let's get a little aggressive and start daydreaming about how we really go after this and what do we need to do. And we're starting to plant some of those seeds now.
Education is what's going to make the difference.
Yep.
Education is going to make the difference for you guys, and teaching people like, yo, this is, yeah, it's a surgery, but this is going to be the major impact. This is how it's going to change your life. And this is 10-20 times better than just a regular hearing aid. Kids that are born deaf is probably going to be more beneficial to them. Kids that are like, maybe they turn like 5 or 6 born deaf. Do you think that would be like a great market for you guys to, like, they don't have to have the thing around the ear, it's already in them, and they can just grow with it, and like it's regular, like they can hear like just like everybody else, and wouldn't be something they noticed?
So our device is going to be for adults. It's initially indicated for adults. We do have some ideas around pediatrics, but that's going to be down the line because right off the bat, we wanted to make sure we got to adults. If you look at the cochlear implant market, I agree with you. Like if a child could have a cochlear implant without having the big thing on the side of their head, it would be a massive improvement for that child. Absolutely. And eventually we want to get there, or get to some close version of that if we can. But on the business side, when you look at where the real market opportunity is for cochlear implants, it's actually in aging adults. So that is actually where the large, fast-growing population of cochlear implant users is, because people are living longer, they're damaging their hearing throughout their year. It's kind of like the AirPod thing, right? Like, it's a good thing for us that you can use them, but people are actually damaging their ears by using too much noise exposure. And so the market opportunity is actually in the aging adults, and we are perfect for that group, in my opinion. We're gonna really dominate the aging adults because it's fully implanted, it's 24/7 hearing. You don't have to worry about wearing that external. Like let's think about, a lawyer just contacted me and said, I'm hard of hearing. I don't want to admit I'm hard of hearing because I don't want my patient or my clients to know that I'm hard of hearing. And so I'd like a fully implanted solution so that I don't have to have this visible disability. To each his own. And I think Envoy provides that flexibility and that option. So I'm focused on the adults. I hear what you're saying about the pediatrics, but I'm focused on the adults.
Yeah, no, I completely hear you. I'm just thinking of avenues that the stuff, I mean, you see it on TikTok where a kid finally sees, or a kid finally hears his parents, I mean, that catches everybody's attention. And definitely I have people that I work with, they don't want to admit they're hard of hearing, and because they don't want to wear this big thing on the side of the head, because at the end of the day, they feel embarrassed. You know what I mean? Yep. So, but one thing I say is that what I know you said 10,000 a year. You guys would be going great, and then scale from there. What is the market cap of this space to you? How big is this market to you?
The market to us right now, if you look at, let's assume the number I said earlier, 2.8 million folks just in the United States, and then take a device price of 30,000, it's $84 billion. And right now, our largest competitor, Cochlear Limited, they're based out of Australia. Their market cap as a company is about 14 billion, I believe. I can never remember if that's US dollars or Australian dollars, but it's in the ballpark. So when you look at where they are, multi-billion-dollar company, and you look at where we are, where we are makes no sense. So it just does not make logical sense to me. So I think this market is, the market in general, the hearing implant, hearing aid, hearing loss market is hundreds of billions of dollars. And for us to be able to even take just a little bit of that, our investors are going to be happy. So, we're focused on executing so that we get in a position to win. I used to have a baseball coach, and he would always say, put ourselves in a position to win, and then, be ready to take advantage of a lucky bounce or a good opportunity. So we're going to put ourselves in a position to win so that when we get FDA approval, fingers crossed, hopefully everything goes well in 2027, 2028, who knows what the world looks like at that point, and we should be able to really take advantage of some interesting opportunities.
Definitely, Brent. I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. I know you're busy, but this is, I'm glad from the first show to now, you're right at the cusp of like getting that approval, and revenue is going to be swimming in, and you know I really like what I'm hearing. I think a lot of investors are gonna like what they hear about this, and I think you're about to turn the corner. You're about to turn the corner. I think you got a niche here. And I was listening something that says you're better off finding a small niche that nobody's tapped, and I think you found it, and nobody's tapped. And I think once it starts really getting out there, I think you'll be in that ballpark of like a $20 billion company, because you'll be surprised how many people is gonna really need this.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears. I mean, I,
Yeah,
I,
100%.
yeah, I look. Not only are we not only like a specialized product in a large market, but we also, the hearing implant, or the hearing industry is controlled by a bunch of oligopolies that are moving slowly and very ripe for disruption. And I think that's also going to let us come in and really displace market share for them quickly. They look at us and they think, oh, this little startup company, can they ever really get here? Can they ever really take our spot? Well, they're going to find out in about 5 years that we're here to play, and we got a real strong technology that's gonna resonate well with folks. So I don't know where we're going to be in 5 years in terms of market cap, but boy, I think we have an opportunity to be a very successful company and really make our investors happy. And that's what we're going to try to work for every day.
Man, thanks for everybody for watching. We're gonna end it on that note. I really like that. There's oligarchies that's at the gate, and you're about to break it down. But appreciate you, go. Thank you for Inside the Ticker Marathon Money. It's Brent. Go check out the stock. I'm gonna have an analyst up on the website. Peace.